APASWE. I'm the president of APASWE for now, and I'm based in Malaysia, Lincoln University College, for the last, entering my 4th year. So today we are gathering this morning for our Southeast Asian region on the topic of spirituality. It is an interesting topic that might have not been taken seriously by most of our academic colleagues. Well, we have been talking about it, but we're in our curriculum. We are fortunate this morning to have 2 speakers from Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Toto Witono, and from the Republic of Philippines, Dr. Joryma Reyes. It will be more better for them to introduce themselves later on, so we can hear a little bit more of them rather than me telling you who they are. Firstly, I've yet to meet Dr. Toton. I've known Dr. Joryma for quite some time now. A little bit of housekeeping. We have 2 hours, and since we have only 2 speakers, I will give both speakers 30 minutes maximum, and I will alert them when there is 5 minutes left. After that, we will be having hopefully lively discussion, exchanging of ideas and comments and questions. And at that time, raise your hand, and our friends in Shukutoku University, ARISW, the technicians over there, will switch that individual audio and video so we can see who you are and the questions or comments that you're going to raise. Okay? So that will make it more personal in that sense. Without much delay, I will now let our first speaker to give her presentation. The floor is yours. Dr. Toton first, right?
Thank you, Professor Zulkarnain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay. Good morning for attendees in Asia. Good afternoon, maybe, for Africans, and good evening for North Americans. I hope you are all safe and healthy for all of us. First of all, I thank to Professor Zulkarnain as the moderator and as well as the liaison for me. And also for the host and for the host, please let me know later if my voice is muted or interrupted, and also concerning the time left, maybe for moderator. Thank you. Many thanks and high appreciation for the organizer of this academic forum. Let me introduce myself. My name is Toton Witono, as introduced in the first by Professor Hatta. I'm a trainer on social welfare in the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Republic of Indonesia. Yes, I'm just a trainer, not academician or researcher, but my doctorate study majoring in social welfare, University of Indonesia, and I'm concerned with spirituality in social work, and my dissertation is about social work and spirituality for the elderly in Indonesia. Actually, it's an honor for me as one of the presenters in such a wonderful global academic forum. I'm so glad to meet many experts here, and actually I read as well as use some works of theirs concerning social work and spirituality. Many outstanding works of Professor Edward Kanda. Maybe I think he is here. I hope he's here with us right now. So thank you. Maybe if Professor Kenda is here, thank you. My deepest appreciation for you. So let's go to our topic today, spirituality and social work. For your information, the topic is actually a rare topic to study in Indonesia, especially in social work practice. Maybe 6 to 8 years ago, I started doing research on this theme and on this topic, precisely on Islam and social work. And I found many obstacles. Besides struggling to pass this theme to be a research topic, it was also difficult to find practitioners in field to be the research informants. Moreover, it was about preferences. Until now, perhaps research and publications are still limited, especially in our country, in Indonesia. And then the idea of applying a holistic view of social work emerged on surface. There is bio-psychosocial spiritual model. But it was just an idea, a discourse among academicians and also maybe bureaucrats, I guess, with many limitations. And then I took grounded theory method to explore this theme. And the final topic, the title of my research, not about Islam in particular, but spirituality in social work, especially in the domain of social service for the elderly in Indonesia. Okay, before presenting the main focus, let me explain the background. I will introduce the wealth of Indonesia. Excuse me, the host, can I share myself or shared by the host, my slides? Hello? Okay, I will share myself.
Share yourself.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, it's very clear.
Yes, we can see it very clearly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, many people in the world maybe know more about Bali than Indonesia. Oh yeah, before I explain about the wealth of Indonesia, I will explain first the outline of my presentation. I will explain firstly about the background in Indonesia declines, and then spirituality in literatures. Spirituality in Indonesian perspective, it is the matter of terms and definition, and then about living spirituality as the main core of my presentation, and then living spirituality in social work practice, what is it? And the last is discussion and challenges. And again, people in the world may know more about Bali than Indonesia. Actually, it is just one of the 7,000 islands in Indonesia. And then we have dense population around 270 millions. This is survey in the 2020. And then formal language is Bahasa Indonesia, but we have local language, hundreds local language, 700. And then also as an archipelago state, 1700 islands, we have multi-ethnics and cultures, around 300 ethnic groups, and also 1,300 ethnics. And then the formal religion is 6, and then the 6 like Islam, Christianity, Protestant, Catholics, Hindu, Buddha, and also Konghucu. About the population, the majority of population in Indonesia is Muslim. around 229 millions, or 87% of the population. Maybe we are still the biggest population, Muslim population in the world, around 13%. And then actually we have indigenous beliefs, almost 200 maybe. Okay, that's just the introduction of Indonesia. Okay. Firstly, about spirituality. In literature, spirituality is defined as around search of meaning, life purpose, intimacy, connectedness, relationship with God, transcendence, and the sacred. But spirituality in literature is not the same with religion, and their scope is also different. In general, spirituality is broader, it's bigger than religion. In Indonesia, spirituality is an unfamiliar term. The term spiritual is the same or similar with ruhani or ruhania, batin or batian. It is from Arabic term. It is more acknowledged and familiar. And then when you ask them about what is spiritual or what is ruhani or batinia, they will ask maybe around the concept of mental, religion or religiousness, piety and morals, vertical relationship with God, the inner aspect of human or batin, intrinsic motivation, and everything opposed to something physical. And it's called jasmani and rohani. Jasmani or jasmania. It is also from Arabic terms. Okay. Give me 1 second to control this. Just a minute. Yeah, it is the matter of terms and definitions. And also in regulation of social service 48, one of the efforts in some regulations, especially 48, one of the efforts to improve the vulnerable elders' well-being is religious and mental spiritual service. For example, in forms of religious mentoring and providing supporting means for religious activities. So from the fact and also reflected in regulation, there may be tendencies or ambiguity is, of course, my subjectivity. There is a tendency about the dualistic view of mind and body, or body and soul. And then Indonesians tend to similarize between spiritual, mental, and psychological aspect. In brief, spirituality is quite or similar with religion or religiousness and religiosity. So the two terms, spirituality and religion, is used interchangeably in practice of helping profession, in regulations, or even in academic discourse and publication. And then Indonesian scholars prefer to use the term religiosity or religiousness rather than spirituality. In fact, they explain the religiosity or religiousness is the same with spirituality. And then with such tendencies and ambiguity, that is to say that we have no concept of spirituality. Again, it's just a matter of terms and definition. For Indonesian people, including in the context of social service delivery, spirituality is not comprehended nor defined. It is lived and done. It is spirituality in practice, and we can call it living spirituality. Next, in the context of Indonesian society, living spirituality is much manifest in religious teachings and traditions or rituals, either individually or collectively with community, with jama'ah. And the source of their spirituality may from religion, the former religion, and also out of the religion. And such living spirituality is not clearly expressed in the context of social work practice, especially in the interaction between practitioners and clients. And then manifestation or expressions of living spirituality between practitioners and the elder clients is different. The practitioner's understanding of spirituality is usually commonly shaped by education or training, and also the regulation of in which he worked based on the regulation. But the exploration results show that their understanding, the practitioner's understanding, is almost the same with the common understanding with the common people. It is not surprising because spirituality is not an issue in the social service. That is why my research was not adequate, far from adequate to construct a conceptualization of practitioners' spirituality like Professor Edward Kanda in 1986 did for social workers in North America. As in the previous slide, the living spirituality of practitioners and the clients is different. Here is the manifestation of the practitioners' living spirituality. Their motivation to serve the clients, religious affiliation and practice, belief and values, meaning making, and benefits or wisdom finding. In our bahasa mencari hikmah atau menemukan hikmah, and also other components of spirituality. A little bit about the components of practitioners' understanding. This is about the motivation to serve the elderly clients. Their motivation to serve the clients is to dedication to work, concern with humanity and social care, and also religious motivation. It is for the sake of God without expecting rewards or entitlement. And in Arabic term, lillahi ta'ala. And then personal motivation, creating a better relationship between the practitioners and with the clients. They consider the elders as like their own parents or their own grandmother and father. So it will be there's a contradictory between the personal motivation and the professional values, because professional personal or subjective feeling of the practitioners maybe can be accepted by the professional values, but in fact their motivation can make a better relationship and then increase the trust of the clients, and also in turn will make the service delivery effective. And then here are the elderly clients' spirituality. For your information, that the elder spirituality were explored based on the experiences or sufferings and the way they respond. Here are the spirituality, the living spirituality, the components. I mean, religious affiliation, practice, and beliefs, and then hope and fear, existential problems, connectedness, it is the relationship and intimacy, spiritual tasks and needs, and then religious coping. In field, it was hard to find the practitioners use forms of spirituality-based assessment and or intervention developed by Western scholars. Even when they interact with their clients, it is rare. They never maybe write the interaction or record it in the form, especially in the when the practice is involving spirituality. That is because they were not taught either in school or in training, so that they are unfamiliar with the spiritual models. And then to what extent living spirituality is applied in practice, it depends on both on the capability of practitioners to understand the spirituality held by the clients and by themselves, and on their initiative, how it is articulated in their interaction. And then the themes or categories of the elders living spirituality can make or create a list of questions for spiritual assessment based on the themes or the categories found in our interview. And then we can also make some examples or forms of spiritual intervention. Again, spiritual-based typology of practitioners and the elders that I made can create the model of spiritual assessment and intervention. And then spiritual intervention for the elders based on the practitioner's typology. To illustrate that some typology of the practitioners, for example, the flexible and then the formal is relevant for one typology of the elders. So the forms of the interventions is really different from other typology, from another typology. And then characteristics of spiritual intervention model based on their typology. It is between directive versus reflective partnership model. Again, it is based on their typology, the typology of practitioners as well as the elders. And then many components of the elders' spirituality can contribute to their mental health. Themes or categories of the elders' spirituality can be the basis of spiritual task of aging. It is done by spiritual tasks or needs of aging. It refers to McKinley models. She adopted Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, like this in the theory of human development. In this point, the spiritual task by McKinley, it doesn't mean a fast or task that should be completed before leaving this world. Besides, the task must not be sequential, but can be overlapped. One phase can occur again or even be revised in some chances and life events. This is from Matthews. In brief, the tasks are not simply tasks that the person completes and then moves on. McKinley calls it as the process of becoming. This is the example. I make many spiritual tasks of aging based on the theme I find. This is the spiritual task of aging concerning connectedness from the theme relationships, intimacy, and isolation, and then also the prayer. For example, the theme prayer. The task or the needs, spiritual needs for the eggs, for example, ask hopes and desires to God by praying for self-goodness, and then pray for good and honored end of life, or live this word with husnul khotimah, and then so on. And then the finding can maybe challenge the modern theories. Connectedness with the loved one who have passed away manifests through prayer. They always pray for the deceased one, and then local traditions in here of praying or religious rituals. We can say tahlilan or yasinan and haul. We can recite together the verses of the Quran, and then some of them hanging their pictures on the wall. The pictures of the deceased, and then keeping their inheritances, not they still keep their the deceased inheritances, And then also they remember and memorize the deceased. It's called maybe reminiscence, if I'm not wrong. Those manifestations actually create a strong and endless collectivity of the inner with the deceased, and it's called the continuing bonds, the strong bonds. If I'm not wrong, it is the theory from Alan. I forget the complete name. The continuing bonds, the source of motivation, preserves hopes and way to fulfill the elder's spiritual needs. But in modern theories, continuing bonds is called pathological, and maybe it's not good for the modern theories. And then another idea from my findings is to broaden the concept of person and environment. The idea is actually promoted by some experts, Besson and Kanda, Zaf, and Kanda and Furman. The idea is struggle to integrate spirituality into the concept of PIE by way of broadening the concept of person and environment. And then in this point in my finding, my research, it is applicable. The theme of connectedness of Indonesian elders can be the theme or the component to broaden the concept of PIE. The first about the concept of person, the self. Self-transcendence through a series of negative life events, for example, endless suffering, illness, and disability because of aging factors. And then the elders consider the hardship as a test, as an examination, or reminder, or faith from God that should be accepted with patience and even thankful. And then stop wishing something more in their life, and they are done with themselves or their worldly needs. And then about the concept of environment, the struggle the effort to broaden the concept of environment. Relationships with not only persons surrounding them, but also family, relatives, and people who are still alive. Not only persons surrounding them, but also preserving the inner connection with relatives who never see them by praying, and with beloved persons who have passed away. And also it is about continuing bonds, strong bonds. And then vertical relationship with God is the real proof for the possibility of expanding the concept of the environment beyond the narrow concept of social connectivity, because it is about the relationship between the world and then the sacred, something higher, bigger. Okay, I show the two comparison between boulder or stone and then gemstone. If it is not a hyperbolic analogy, living spirituality is like gemstones, which are still in forms of raw materials, stones or boulders. When we see the boulders, maybe we don't know what's in the boulders. We don't know the potential of the stone. But yes, it is hidden. The beauty of the stone is hidden. But sometimes when we have to cut it and then to hone it and then make it smooth, so we can see the beauty of the gemstone, about the structure, textures, and colors of the crystal maybe, and then also the color. Actually, after we struggle more, we can see the beauty of the stone within the stone. And then here, as explained in the beginning, Indonesia is like a hidden treasure to discover, to mine. And the mining products, quote unquote, or study or research findings, is to enrich social work practice, or even to construct spiritually sensitive social work models that are appropriate for the local context. It is in forms of maybe we have many indigenous cultures or beliefs, and then
Sorry, Dr. Tonton, you have 5 more minutes.
okay, 1 minute again. It's okay. So Indonesian is a hidden. Do you hear me? Can you hear me, Professor? Check, check.
Yes, we can hear you. I'm just telling you, you have about 5 to 6 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the hidden treasure is can be in forms of indigenous beliefs or cultures, and then also we have rich of religious traditions and rituals. And it is maybe the challenge for for Indonesian practitioners, scholars, and researchers. Besides professional social workers, we have so many state-owned human resources in delivering social service. They may unconsciously use living spirituality in practice. By unconsciously, I mean that they don't realize or say not on purpose that in fact they use it. Their spirituality may in fact illuminate their practice, which might not be taught or trained in school or university or in training centers because there's no curriculum. But I don't know, maybe the last development, some schools, some high schools, especially in faith-based school like state-owned State Islamic University, and also Muhammadiyah University in many places. Maybe they have included the curriculum of the spirituality or religion in social work or major in social welfare. I don't know exactly. And then, but unfortunately, such practice are not explored yet, not written nor published. So we don't know. The world doesn't know what happened in Indonesia. What is to what extent the development of social work and spirituality in Indonesia. So it is our challenge. And then another challenge, we see the phenomena these days in practicing religion. Maybe it is again my subjective view. Our people have emphasis more on religious expressions rather than spirituality. In psychologist terms, they more focus on extrinsic, or they keen to do extrinsic spirit religion rather than intrinsic religion. Extrinsic is just the very, while intrinsic is the essence of the religion. It is most of the intrinsic religion is spirituality. And then we see again the increasing intolerance due to different personal view or worldview, and then different faiths or beliefs, and even is this maybe the most factor, the cause of the intolerance. It is the political choice. I don't know exactly. And then also radicalism. And the last, they practice religion. They are so many pious people, but they can be called as ignorant to save the environmental crisis. They just focus on how to to do the righteous deeds, to live the world and then enter the Jannah, surga, to heaven. Yeah. And then the last, how where to go to address the above phenomena. intolerance, radicalism, ignorance to environmental crisis, and then religious expressions or exercise religion is more emphasis. Where to go to address the above phenomena, and how can social workers or practitioners play their roles? If so, especially for those who care with spiritually sensitive practice. So actually, in conclusion, we have a lot of homeworks. Thank you, Mr. Hatta, Professor Hatta. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. It was very informative for most of us in practice in Indonesia, consciously or unconsciously, because the living spirituality concept that you have elaborated is very important for us to ponder upon. And I hope there will be questions and comments from our participants later on. We have a good number of participants here, even though you cannot see it. We have about 70 participants from all over the world. Congratulations to all of you. Our next speaker is from Philippines, a friend of mine recently, Dr. Joryma Reyes. She is a board member of APASWE. And again, like Dr. Tonton, I will ask her to introduce herself personally. Dr. Joryma, you have about 30 minutes too.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Professor Hassa. Thank you
I will
very much.
interrupt you 5 minutes before the end. Questions and comments after the presentation of Dr. Joryma. I will shut myself off now.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Hatta, for the organizer for coming up with a very timely topic. And this is a passion of Professor Hatta, also currently with the University of the Philippines, College of Social Work and Community Development, and one of the board member of APASWE also. And currently have practiced both in clinical practice and in the child protection and human rights and grief work. My presentation today is an excerpt, a very short excerpt. I understand the time is very short, but we will try to mix of spirituality towards the healing and recovery of human rights survivors through the lens of a social work helping process. This is an excerpt from my dissertation, the portion on spirituality.
I'm sorry, could you please switch your camera off? It seems
okay.
the internet connection is not strong enough, not fast enough to bear it all.
Right.
Thank you.
Let me stop video. Is that okay? Better? Is it clearer now?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thank you.
Very much, sir, for alerting me. So this is lifted from my dissertation entitled Hearing the Cries of Extrajudicial Killings, a phenomenological exploration of the surviving family members' journey towards the recovery, which was completed early part of 2019. Now this is one question that was posed in that dissertation, and technically to cover how do surviving family of a family member due to extrajudicial killings. Now, very shortly, these are the timelines used then. If my country population is approximately 109 million population, and when it started, July 2016 to June 2018, these are the various reports of the casualties on the Philippine war on drugs. The PNP would say drug-related death of 4,279 cases. The Ateneo School of Governance said drug-related deaths of 5,000 or more cases. And the Philippine Human Rights Information, 58 cases. Well, depending on the nature, I guess. This morning is about sharing with you the portion which really came out significantly during the dissertation, the interview, and the data gathering. Before I started the dissertation, there was significant review of related lits that I went into, trying to hopefully guide me. And there was that time when I started the research in 2018, there was not much research is done. There are many documentations, but not much. And the idea was to come up with helping process specifically for in this phenomena of the war on drugs. And there were several highlights of that findings in the literature that I have gathered. The importance of media in investigation, that sometimes media intrusion affects the family grieving process because the privacy and then sometimes the misrepresentations of victims are affected. So the intense impact on the family of the violent death, specifically if they keep on seeing it over and over again. Significance of family dynamics is what is written in many related literature is that families who are already in a good family integrated functioning, when a disaster happens to them or critical issues like this happens to them, like the violent death of a person, they are able to manage better, okay, rather than a family who's already has a dysfunctional and conflict situation. And this gives us, like a family advocate myself, this gives us a preventive stance later on in coming and family unification and strengthening. Strategies to cope with fear and death. Many people handled it differently, like role reorganization is a must, specifically if the one who died is the breadwinner of the family. And importantly, coping and capacity to handle anxiety and trauma goes back to the early childhood experiences. So there are respondents who said that given that they were able to handle many challenges in the past, it helped prepare them in handling current and future forms of abuse. And importantly, allowing the family members to talk about their loved ones, it's a part of the ritualization that later on I would share with you. The family coping strategies and recovery, most often, we all know that the mental health is impacted, okay? And there is also a need for educational information about the grieving process, specifically for agencies who cater, and provide support for human rights violations. One of the significant thing that was highlighted that children deal with grief depending on how family survivors and extended family members deal with them. So it's like role modeling. It's like how they see the family. Is the family able to express, and then are they allowed to express? Now, I will not dwell on the entire context, but some excerpts from the data gathered specifically during the recovery phase, wherein the method is interviewing 10 women survivors, either wives, sisters, mothers of the victims of war on drugs. And this is a portion of the recovery phase where they have highlighted spirituality as the key component in the process of self-control and spirituality. I've highlighted the red one that was prominent in terms of identifying. Now, when we talked of spirituality, I agree with Professor Witono that we are not speaking of any particular religion. We are speaking of in general, because not all of them have the same religion. In general, the the belief of a higher being over us, So under the red lines are particular role of spirituality in helping them in the process of recovery. So renewed spirituality strengthens role modeling. So once a person has achieved that, they were saying that I have to look into and depend on my spirituality to be able to model to my younger children, no, that we need to hold on together and not give up, no. Spiritual influence on the meaning making of dreams interpreted as good omen and signs of closure. For many victims, family victims, murder or situation like that, sometimes the family is robbed, specifically if the bodies cannot be found, no? There seems to be an ambiguous loss, meaning that they cannot grieve, they cannot begin grieving because they do not know whether or not the person is alive. So the very strength, I remember interviewing this particular mother who was talking about her son, that the body they couldn't find for quite a period of time. She said that it is her spirituality when she dreamt that her son was wearing a white cloth, I am okay now, you can let go. Okay, she took it as a good omen, and she found peace in that. Now, psychiatrists with tell you otherwise, that there might be some form of our own desires of wanting to have that conversation. But for the women, it was a way for them to hold on to that, the spirit of the departed one is communicating to them that I am in a good space, and because I am in a good space, I cannot give them closure, and that is something very, very strong in the context of healing, and recovery. Also here, ability to experience humor, positive social interaction under the blue um, font. Church spiritual support as an anchor for recovery. Most of the women were given spiritual guidance in terms of processing, expressing their thoughts, and they found those support very, very specifically influence relying on spirituality. They either read the Bible, the good readings on the belief on karma, what goes, the belief on the truth will prevail eventually, and the belief of someday, even if in the law of persons the perpetrator can get away with it, but eventually we all face judgment day. And that gives them a sense of acceptance and peace, knowing that there will come a point in time that even if you those penalty and being caught, there will be an upper hearing, no, of what they have done. Church support group facilitated self-discovery of strengths and purpose during spiritual sessions, spiritual guidance, the possibility of identifying what are their strengths that they failed to see before, and a renowned purpose. Dr. Witono a while ago said the meaning making of that situation, how they use those tragic instances to find meaning in. Strong spiritual belief cultivates comfort, belongingness, and gratitude for relatively better circumstances, because they believe that knowing all of that a while ago that was said in terms of having the good omen, having the spiritual anchor, as a strength, it helps give the sense of comfort and gratitude that better things will be coming up. Hasn't dealt so much on the psyche, the internal trauma, but more of bringing out, identifying the spiritual strength that each person has in each different timeline, different level, different circumstances, helps. And spiritual activities cultivates positivity, meaning to say, instead of crying over it, the women are engaged in volunteer work, no, in providing meals during certain activities, or they volunteer in the organization's soup kitchen. So there is a positive externalization, okay, of their emotion that they're going through. Now, utilization of indigenized spirituality helps towards the concept of self-healing. Why self-healing? And let's talk about it. The framework that was brought about by documenting from the grieving, coping, and recovery gives us, or gave me the opportunity to look into the three process. These are based from, and it came out with a pattern. First one is something bad happens to you, things, specifically when murder and human rights violations were done. This is what you call the phase of anchoring. Okay, you anchor to the ground. You need to stabilize yourself. And one of the significant factor they have identified is a healthy spirituality, meaning to say that faith, that healthy, strong faith, gives you an anchoring, the balance. In Tagalog, we ensure lakas, or the innate strength. But number one of it is the identification of spirituality that leads to the second phase. Once you're able to stabilize oneself, using any of the resilience, courage, and specifically hanging on and embracing your spirituality, stabilization or interwoven strength, okay, is developed, where again it further develops more supportive, healthy spirituality again, and then support groups and other forms of assistance, after which they have integrated, strengths from other components, strengths from other resources. They would be in stage of become morphosis, they say it in life, the transition that would lead them to the renewed social work, social functioning. Okay? Now, the anchoring or likas na lakas, I've highlighted in red here what is significance, why they highlighted spirituality, is practiced by the individual wherein faith in a higher being provides a sense of security and peace that in all times judgment will come. And that sort of define their stance. One, because there are people who believe that the judgment day is not on the legal terms itself. If they, who are you going to file case against? There's no witness coming out. But on the solace of knowing that the judgment day will come someday. And this sort of help provides the closure, the strength to stabilize, when you are in a chaos, when you are in an anxious state, gives you a sense of stability. And this is a lot of times in Asia Pacific countries, we have, whatever religion we have Buddhism, Muslim religion, we have the Catholic, a Protestant religion. Each speaks of a higher being over. So this is a significant sharing that stabilized or interwoven strengths, simply explained, healthy spirituality remains a potent force that is strengthened as it becomes a binding force of the interwoven strengths of the person. They were saying that as you go along seeking or accepting or participating in any other forms of help, the faith or spirituality is still in the middle of it, binding it, providing you the meaning making for those situation. Okay, and they would say, one mother would tell me, say, you realize that there are many people who are willing to help despite that I am a stranger, and despite of the fact that my case is very difficult because it involves, the death and stuff like that, right? And reflowing, the metamorphosis, they say that once you undergo stabilization, using and hanging on to your spirituality, you use that to weave. The second stage is to weave all your strength, overlapping the spirituality in a form of spirituality that would now help you deal and look forward to a better future and move on. Okay? There are metamorphoses of healing as lifted from what they said and put in English. As a lifetime of hardship taught us to survive. And then there's one who says that it's like flower blooming in the murky water. If you have that renewed spirit, even if there are murky water. I remember Mulan when this was said. No? Even in the darkest, dirtiest water, the flower is able to bloom. Resiliency and expression. Courage is not the absence of fear, but overcoming it. And this succeeding brown font are their representation or metaphors for their healing. It says it's a purpose-driven life because I'm not the only force to rely on. There is some higher being there who directs me, guides me, and this becomes a comfort, and a sense of stability for a person. Faith in God is the strongest anchor. Your sense of believing that the higher being there is there looking over everyone becomes the strongest anchor for a person. Connection to God. Influence of spirituality towards the road to healing and recovery. When you have a very strong sense of spirituality, this helps you the difficult times, specifically during healing and recovery. Justice is never about revenge. This is what uh, really touched my heart when the mother said that, seeking, they asked me several times, I was interviewed several times, what do I want to get out so that I can take justice, And the mother said that profoundly, she said that, it's never about revenge. Justice is about knowing that, at the end of the day, the perpetrators will pay when whatever it in the form, whether they were catch now here on earth and be held accountable for what we did, or when the second hearing of life comes. And for them, justice is about being able to overcome now the circumstances and being able to live their life in a better functioning way moving forward. Sources, non-revenge as preferred options because they are reliant to the justice, of God someday, that it will all be given justice. Okay. Now, I just like to highlight this portion here. Okay, when we talked about the survival mode, people who are experiencing trauma, grief, and we all study this in psychology. The learning brain or the thinking brain, that is what we call the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of the brain, goes offline. It's not only the connectivity that goes offline, the internet connectivity, the brain, and the limbic system. Okay, the brain disconnect and it becomes offline. So everything cognitively sometimes is put on hold because your limbic system or the survival brain kicks in. Now, this is very important because as we look forward between the logical portion of the brain disconnecting from the entire being of the person, specifically when you talk of crisis situation, how do we now preventive approach in dealing or helping our fellow countrymen? It's belief that part of it, okay, the spiritual concept, the spiritual strength, can can be used as a bridge to gap between the disconnection of the brain. And therefore, like which we said earlier, our body, okay, biologically speaking, we all have the capacity to self-heal when we are injured, depending on the gravity of the injury. But innately, given time, the right medication, the right treatment, we go through the process of healing. And in a lot of people, given the circumstances, from the experiences of these 10 women, their spiritual first aid, an emotional, psychological first aid for them, because immediately they can resort to that. It's accessible to them. They believed in it. They have it within them. And it becomes right in the moment of crisis, becomes now the bridging gap. And as practitioners, social workers, I think indigenizing our own spirituality, our own culture, will be one of the salient, truly an expression of our culture. And given the experience of these 10 women, I told them once when I ended the interview with each one of them, I began the research believing that in the end I can contribute to the healing process. But in the end, it was me who have learned a lot from them. That there is strength, innate strength in every individual, like what we believed in what we adhere to, individual strength of a person. And perhaps we can look into the portion of strengthening the spiritual aspect, promote our very own indigenous social work practice in the Asia Pacific region. So these are just the implications. And then my favorite quote is, healing is a matter of time, but it also sometimes a matter of opportunity, by Hippocrates. So maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reese, who have kept within the time. So a very interesting presentation. And when I'm hearing this and I'm reading, I'm seeing a lot of similarities throughout the spirituality of other religions, namely Islam, Buddhism, as was detailed yesterday, and Hinduism. When we talk about spirituality, before I open up the for questions and comments, there are issues that we need to solve. And one of the issues is on the issue of definition. As Professor Akimoto yesterday was mentioning, when they decided to define what is Buddhist social work, they went through the same process of many variation of, or interpretations or ideas, how finally we can come up with an operating functional definition of Buddhist social work. Similarly, if we are serious about having spirituality in social work in our curriculum, regardless of our culture and religion, we need to also resolve some of these definitional issues. And there are 4 points here I'd like to raise for us to ponder upon on the issues of definition. There are some of us who they say that it concerns spirituality concerns within the domain of sectarian. In other words, things spiritual will be contaminated when you bring religious ideas, and that can be seen by the excuse me, by what Dr. Thornton earlier mentioned in Indonesia. They try to avoid the word spirituality and emphasis more on religious worker. Now, conversely, on the other side of it is that things spiritual will be contaminated with religious ideas. So that is an issue that we need to resolve. Second, is the province of religion and should be accepted as such. In other words, is spirituality in the province of religion? And as such, no more discussion. If that is the case, what about those who do not believe in traditional religion? Are we saying that they are not spiritual? We can't, right? Third, spirituality it shouldn't be seen as a static concept. It is always emerging, it is changing, it is adapting, embracing, and at times relinquishing. And finally, on the issue of definitional issues, it is about the dynamic of the spirit in our spirit. Okay, so the spirit here with a capital S. Because we can't assume everybody believes in God. I've accepted that. If that is the case, nonetheless, there is that bigger spirit. For those who believe in God, the Muslims, we call Allah, Father. But there must be a supra being, an intelligent person in his loneliness, in his solitude, will come to a conclusion that there must be a supra being within, or for lack of a better word, we call it the spirit with a capital S, within our spirit, our consciousness. So there are many issues for us to comment and questions. So first of all, to start the ball rolling, we have about close to an hour. We will start with questions for the panelists first, before you want to make your comments. So please raise your hand, and then our friends in Japan will turn on your video, allow you to access to your video and to your audio. Please identify yourself and your affiliation. Thank you.
Hi, morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Professor Happy. And I would like to ask a question to Dr. Vitono. Is it called Vitono? Morning. Okay. My question is, first of all, I'm very appreciate what you have conducted, which really inspired us regarding the issue of spirituality. And in your presentation, you have proposed us some new understanding on person and environment.
One second, Charles, can I interrupt you? Can you introduce yourself and your affiliation, where you're from? That would be nice for all of us to know you.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. And my name is Charles, and I'm now working as a social work teacher in Chinese mainland. And my upbringing is in Hong Kong, so that I am a Hong Kong Chinese, but now working in Chinese mainland. So is it okay? Maybe let me continue my question first. My question is, Dr. Tonto has proposed some new concepts like person and environment, okay, based on your research findings. And I would like to further know what would be the relationship of those new concepts with the Western ideas like empowerment or self-actualization, okay, with the new concept of person, or regarding the new idea of environment you propose, what would be the relationship with another very hot idea in the Western context called sustainability? So could you further elaborate or share some of your idea with us? Thank you.
Dr. Toto, question was directed to you.
Yeah. Should I directly answer the question or Prof. Hatta? Yeah, as far as I understand, as far as I get the Charles question about the new idea about to broaden the concept of person in environment. Yeah, as I said before in the presentation, that the idea is not really new. That's not from me. The idea was promoted 2 decades ago by Besson and Kanda. I don't know whether there was the previous experts that promote the idea. But as far as I explore the literatures, Besson and Kanda in 2002 and Zaf 2007, 8, and Kanda and Furman 2010. Actually, they want to revise the concept of person in environment. Person in the traditional or modern concept is just around the self, the ego. It is the individual of the clients, and the environment is social environment. It's just people, the social surround the person, and then the promoters, Besson, Kenda, and Zaf, want to broaden the concept of person, not only the self, the ego, but also something different from different than the ego. It's maybe beyond the ego, And then while the what is that? The concept of environment is broadened by it is just not only the social environment or society or people surround the individual, the person, but the environment is also around something beyond this physical, something beyond beyond the world, and also yeah, the relationship with the nature, with God, and etc. Not only with social environment. And then my finding is just to what is that, to strengthen or to have to what is that, to complete or to what is that, to understand more about what's the effort to broaden the concept within the Indonesian local. That is, for example, as I presented in my slide, self-transcendence about the person. The self-transcendence, it is through how the elders face the series of negative life events like sufferings, illness, or disability, or grief or something. And then the self-transcendence is reflected by their consideration that the hardship, the suffering, the illness is just an examination or test or reminder or a faith from God. So we have to accept it. Even we have to thankful to God. So it's self-transcendence, not only the person itself. And then the concept of environment. One of the examples that can help to broaden the concept of the environment in PIE is about the relationship with God. That's the first. And the second, they have such a continuing bonds. They still remember the deceased person, the loved person that passed away, and then they still hang the photo, and then still keep the inheritance. On the contrary, for the modern theory, it's pathological because it will make the person will always remember and always remember the past, not look at the future. It's so it's called pathological in accordance with the modern theory. But in spirituality in here, it is the strength for the strength, the inner strength for the elders to what is that, to motivate them uh, s- uh, to preserve hope in the future, and in the future the life after the world, they expect to meet in the hereafter. Is that clear, or my answer for Dr. Lung?
Thank you.
Professor
Thank
Hatta?
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charles, and for the answer, Dr. Potot. Anyone else? I see here there's Adil Bashir. You have a question for any of the two presenters?
Yes.
Please
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum and a
switch
very
on
good
your
morning. Very good morning.
Salam.
Yeah, I'm from
salam.
Kashmir. I'm
Can we see your face?
yeah, just I'm okay. Just a second. ये आपका पूरी वीडियो थे? Okay.
Adil Kashmir, he is from Kashmir.
Yes, yes, sir. Okay. Can you see me, sir? Okay, no.
No.
No, okay. I don't know. I'm just able to just unmute and
It's okay. It's all right if you can't see your face. No problem.
I can't just see the video. Just a second. Yeah. I am not getting any option of video. Maybe I know. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Just direct your question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm teaching in Department of Social Work, University of Kashmir, and I'm very thankful to Professor Hata Apasi for organizing this webinar on a very important issue, spirituality, religious prescriptives, and other things which are very important in the contemporary times in view of the various kinds of disasters and the conflicts which we have. And at the same time, the modernization, the globalization which has taken place, no one is having time for the one or the near ones, or people living in conflict zones or other parts. And I think this is the time where we need to bring the concepts of spirituality at forefront, so that many issues can be addressed. I'm very thankful to you, sir, for giving me opportunity and organizing this program on a very right time, and having the global understanding that how the ma'am from the Philippines, she shared how the healing process take place, and what are the families who have been affected, and how they have tried to cope up from this kind of situations. In fact, living in this part of the world, Kashmir, it is it is known for Sufism. It is known for saints. It is known for Sufism, and we have a lot of spirituality and spiritual, understanding in this area, because there are so many shrines here. There have been so many Sufis in 1600 and 1500. So many Sufis have arrived who have practiced this spirituality, spread the message of Almighty. And now if we have problems, anyone is having issues, because this is such a sophistic and culturally, culture is such a way that we approach these shrines. There are so many shrines, and people go to this shrine and get connected. They become a medium. That becomes a medium for them to remain connected and attain some amount of spirituality. I must tell you, sir, at the same time, when we were talking about, I read a study where small children who were going to school, and then this blast took place and these children got injured. So when we went to interview them, to the children, that they were in trauma, they were affected, and they were like, the post traumatic disorder was there for some time, because when they were just going to the gate school, just trying to enter the school gate, they would just recapitulate everything what happened where the blast took place. And but slowly, when we went them that how do you actually get out of this problem? And they said that it was the religion. It's the religion which helped them. It was the faith, the strong faith that this problem was supposed to happen them, and therefore this they came out of it having this spirituality, having the religion as a factor which helped them to go back from this traumatic situation. But sometimes I must I may because there are diverse culture, diverse religious faiths throughout the world. I think if it is possible for the ma'am to share that sometimes there are certain cultural barriers, certain cultural prescriptives, cultural barriers are there, which may kind of obstruct the healing processes. For example, in many cases we have seen that where the woman has lost a husband, or who is affected by one or the other problem, but you have certain cultural practices where weeping and the other things start, and that kind of recurrents the traumatic experiences of the woman. So if ma'am can tell us that in that situation, although she has beautifully said that the support groups and the best practices are there which can be helped, so how we can work in this situation to help in the process of healing? I'm very thankful to all of you.
Thank you, Adil, Dr. Adil. And yes, I think there is a question for Dr. Joryma before I answer two questions that I received in the Q&A. Dr. Joryma, would you like to entertain the last question from Dr. Adil from Kashmir?
Hello, sir. Nice to hear from you,
Same here,
Dr. Adi. Thank you very much. I learned, I like what you shared earlier on.
to listen to all you, and it was a very nice lecture. I could really reconnect to you and Professor Toton also when he was sharing.
Thank you. I think we have a similar experience when you mentioned children surviving attacks, and when you ask the same question, how did you survive? And similar to the women I have spoken to, they share the same component that along the way, it's the spirituality that they have, that there is a higher being, not specifically any religion, but a higher being looking over. And soon they will be all right. I think it's not being fatalist. Other would call it as fatalistic, as saying that we are maybe fatalistic. But again, there is quite a number of people who respond to using spirituality as an opening, as a beginning pathway to heal. Like I said earlier, it could be a beginning for
Voice is gone.
So Joryma, are you still there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. So
Oh,
thank you.
Wait,
Thank
wait,
you.
how
Can
do
I
you
come?
pronounce the name?
Bathishik.
Bhakti
Bathishik.
Shik?
That's
Okay.
right. Thank you.
I think we have lost Joryma from Philippines. So until she comes back, you can you have a question for me.
Yes, yes. I'm the lecturer, social work lecturer at the National University of Mongolia. I do teach the social work. Thank you for all panelists. They give their the very interesting presentations. So, Professor Zulhata, I got some impression that you proposing, or that's my impression. So maybe if it's wrong, maybe just forgive me. So I found that you got some kind of impression to have the general term instead of the Muslim social work, on Buddhist social work, on Christian social work. we may need to have the general term like spirituality and social work, or some kind of this term we need. Is that correct? If I got your impression, is your suggestion, I mean, proposal?
Thank you for your question from Mongolia, Bakishik. Yes, it is not for me to decide what sort of social work in the spirituality component a program should introduce. Nonetheless, in discussion with friends all over in IA and many more, there need to be a component of spirituality as a start, a component of general spirituality, not as an elective, but as a core subject at the bachelor's level. Both of us, I do not know your experience, but I went through my undergraduate days in America, and even at the level right up to doctorate. Not a single component of spirituality is in those God knows how many subjects I've taken. Okay? So, and yet at the same time, listening from our friends, the Buddhist friends yesterday and today, Dr. Reyes and Dr. Tonton, it seems that citizens, common folks, are much more at ease with the religious or spiritual people. Seeing the monks coming to them, it pacifies them. In Fukushima, the horrible tsunami in northeast Japan, a lot of monks did a lot of good things to pacify them. In Indonesia, in Sri Lanka. The problem is that in trying to introduce spirituality component, unfortunately, from my point of view and observation, we academics, we lecturers, we are not fully prepared. So how can we teach something when we do not have the information or enough adequate information, knowledge to teach the subject? That is a number one issue. Okay, even if we have one lecturer who is interested and will do the research and such, it is a start. But to leave it at the level of just discussing and discussing for endless of years, and yet in Malaysia, for instance, out of 9 public universities, there might be only one or two universities that has a component of spirituality in them. In Bangladesh, for instance, there's nothing. In Indonesia, there's maybe 1 or 2 more. So, but by and large, our BSW program do not offer spirituality in general, okay? Now, later on, you want to specify it to Islam, to Buddhist, to Hinduism. It's up to the local people to decide. So that's my take, my initial take on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Hatta. Yes, I totally agree with you. Yes, we should have the curriculum instead of one component. So we should have one curriculum. I mean, the one class. One class means we have at least 1 or 2 credit, one curriculum. I mean, the class curriculum we should have. So in Mongolia, so we don't have any course on spirituality, but maybe this class goes only one topic, or one hour class maybe goes to in the part of the history, or we don't have this type of the class topic. So I totally agree. We should have at least one class, one curriculum, one topic. I don't know that people call in different place different, but at least we should have the spirituality and social work should be part of the social work bachelor program. I agree with you. Since if people don't have the basic foundation understanding of spirituality, how can we work with the people who are very sensitive in the spirituality? I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sister from Mongolia. There is a question also from Bayak Stetek, right? I think you have a question for Joryma. Please take the mic, Bayak Stetek.
Hello? Okay, I think
Yes.
I unmuted
Oh.
myself. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead and
my-
introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm also representing National University of Mongolia. I also teach social work macro practice classes. My question was, it's not actually question, but rather a comment or a puzzle that I would like to discuss with you. It's about the PIE. In the comment, it's written as a new concept, new approach to the social work. But as far as I read it, probably it's very Western, I'm sorry. It's been extended so much to the human geographical, sociological, anthropological viewpoints, which includes person and environment and space and place and how space still plays in the human environment. So for my impression, PIE is not a new approach or new concept to a social work, but it's been extended so much by incorporating the other subjects as well. So that's what I was wondering. It's not a question, but rather a kind of a reflection to what the presenter introduced about the PII. Thank you.
Hi, Professor Terbish. I think Dr. Bono was the one who introduced, he was talking about PIE
Right.
in the context of his presentation. But given the times right now, the person in environment framework, in my experience, has come up with an overarching understanding of how we are to view human beings and our clientele and our respondents. But I would just like to say that this today, working in a micro practice, we have worked with many clients, and most often than not, in my country, the strength of the spirituality becomes a very, very early, it's a beginning healing process for many people in the process. So I think the person in environment, if you look at it from the perspective of perhaps Dr. Witono would like to comment, but in the perspective of how I viewed is his presentation in person in environment, is simply saying that it's part of the intricate pattern of looking the intrapsych of the person as well as the external side of the person, equally important, because person affects external, and what happens externally will eventually.
Sorry, your voice is distorted. I don't know. It's an internet connection problem.
Unfortunately, Dr. Joryma's connection sometimes is not stable, and that's the reason we are getting these phasing in and phasing out. This is the disadvantage of online conferences and seminar. Well, there are a lot of advantages, such as we save a lot of money traveling, both for participants and for hosts. But this is the disadvantage of it when our internet connection is not stable. But new norm, guys. What shall we do?
Thank you.
So, Dr. Tebrish, has she answered your question?
Yes, thank you. It wasn't actually a question, but thank you very much. It was just a reflection.
Okay, there is a question from, I think she must be from New Zealand. Jason Haley. So the question is that it seems that for indigenous knowledge to be validated, it has to be written in a written form, as opposed to the oral tradition of sharing knowledge. My question is, do we try and move away from this or encourage more indigenous research and practice? It is obvious that we need to, Dr. Tonton has just illustrated just now that there is a dearth of information, of literature, especially in our region. While Dr. Kanda and Kerman have done a lot since 10, 20 years now, more than 20 years, but literature coming from our region is insufficient to say, and that is an understatement. So yes, we need to move on simultaneously, oral presentation, at the same time doing more research and presenting it in as a publication. We have no choice if we want, because this is a battle, in a way, like what Professor Tatsuru was mentioning yesterday. This is a battle of a form of who wins the promotion of their knowledge or information. Thus far, we have not done a good job. We are embracing whatever we have studied in the West, and we're coming out and we're just parroting it to our students. And then at times, students are confused because what we are parroting to them is against what they have been taught through socialization of their culture. So we can't fault them. We have to fault ourselves for for us to forget where we come from. So again, a teaser for all of you to contribute to this discussion. I see my friend here, Teo Aihua from Malaysia. Go ahead, Teo.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, Joryma and also Pak Tonton. Okay, I'm Teo. I'm a social work lecturer from University Utara, Malaysia. I teach ethics and law in the helping profession at the undergraduate BSW, and also teach ethics, values, ethics, and spirituality. Okay, at the master's level. I'm MSW at UUM. So just to share some of my observation, I think one is that I think for within our region, okay, we talk about spirituality in our daily life, yeah. But when I teach this subject, I was looking at one, how do we understand and how do we get our students to understand what spirituality means? Okay, I think Pak Toton just now has mentioned about spirituality and religion. Okay, is it subset of religion, or is it which one is the subset of which? Okay, so this is something which I think the students or as a social worker they need to understand. And secondly, because so that they can feel more comfortable when they talk to clients, they talk to people on the ground, they would be able to engage with them more, in a more relaxed and more mindful way. My second observation is that because when we talk about spirituality, sometimes when we equate that to religion, then social workers started to see, okay, refrain from talking about religion because they try not to sin of patronizing or imposing so-called the moral policing kind of approach as a social worker, using religion. So I think that prohibits a lot of us, especially in the social work field, to look into the importance of spirituality. I think we acknowledge this is important, but I think we are not sure how do we going to express and also to connect. For me, okay, I don't have to talk about religion when I want to talk about the spiritual needs. Okay, however, a lot of people, they still equate spiritual to religion. I think that would be the challenge, for our practitioners on the ground. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teo. Any one of you, Toton or Joryma, would like to take up on his point of view? which I can agree to many extent. Not agreeing to the situation, but agreeing to his statement. Go ahead, Joryma.
Hello, hello, Theo.
Yes,
Hi, Theo.
yes.
Hi, Joryma.
Hello, nice to see you here again. I think all of us here today have had a similar experience of trying to make distinguish between the discussion on spirituality and the discussion on the religion aspect of it, because we were trained, I think, in our Western way of being taught fragmented portions of knowledge, meaning to say we study this concept that appears to be fragmented at given point in time. I think what we need to do right now, in many cases, not everybody can respond to spirituality as a way or method of working with them, but a lot do respond. And I think one of the challenge for us right now, being in the academe and being led by APASWE, is for us to actually come down, number one, define when we speak of spirituality, what do we want to talk about? I have spoken to, it's not simply about religion, it's the belief that, there is a higher being over everybody, and that there is a way of that all our concerns eventually could be led and could be addressed to in the healing process. But I think what one of the challenge that was given a while ago by our colleague from New Zealand is that we need to come up with researches if we want to strengthen our claim that in the Asia Pacific, there is a component of cultural and spiritual aspect in the helping process of publication. Specifically, in all of our countries, we have indigenous groups, and they have a different way of practicing also that heals them when they are in grief, in pain. And I think this needs to be recorded in the terms of the research that we write, the publications that we make. And I think beginning with that, it can steer a lot of people to think what is really about spirituality that we need to pay attention to. And that is adept to our culture and that of our spirit. Answers your question, Theo.
Thank you, Joryma. And I hope that addresses a little bit of Theo's concern. We have another old friend, Dr. Lin Hauki from Malaysia. She has a comment or question. Please go ahead, Dr. Lin. The mic is yours.
Yeah, hello. Good morning, everyone. I hope I can be heard because I know there is always that problem of internet connection. So,
loud and clear.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I must say this is a very exciting forum of discussion on spirituality and social work. So, listening to all of you, I just like to, and especially on what my old friend Prof. Zhu was talking about, how we do not want to have spirituality or religion into our curriculum. So I just like to share a little bit of my observation. I think if we look at the origin or the historical development of professional social work in the West, it actually did start from, very much, Christian values of love thy neighbor and helping, your community. But as it evolved further, I think the more sort of God-fearing kind of elements and the judgmentalism that goes with helping people, that the idea of seeing that the problem lies in you not believing God and all that, and was being seen as running counter to the values of dignity and worth of the human being. So I think then in terms of professional development of social work, it move away from that religious base. Yeah. And but having said that, I think it looks like we need to think of ways of how to move away from that fear of using religion and also spirituality to enrich social work, because I think it's like listening to the two speakers, I think really spirituality there is a place in every one of us. Although sometimes I still struggle with kind of my own self in terms of my spiritual development. So I feel that there are two things, as I think Zulkarnain was talking about, how do we include it into our curriculum. I think one thing is the idea of human development. The spiritual component must be in there, because we talk very much about just the psychosocial. Yeah? When we talk about human development, child development, and so on, we really kind of disregard the spiritual development of the person, even though for somebody who has no religious grounding, there is still the spirituality inside them, which I think that need to be highlighted or incorporated or developed into our curriculum. So the other thing is the person in environment. Again, we have to recognize that the environment, go beyond just the physical, social, cultural. For many people, the environment is also the supernatural. Whether it is for those who have the indigenous knowledge and beliefs, and also for those who have a certain religion. Yeah, there is that environment that we connect with that is, beyond the physical, and that also I think is something in our social work curriculum when we talk about human development and person in environment. We totally sort of disregard that. So it's something that we can probably think of how we can develop that further, because I think that would also be a way of indigenizing, and a way of bringing back all this indigenous knowledge into our curriculum. And I think yes, the idea of maybe that need to be, I think, incorporated and infused in the curriculum, but also the idea of having like a subject on its own, spirituality and social work. I think I would agree. I think this is where maybe in our curriculum we really have not been able to have a course like that, and that is something I think we need to, I think for Malaysian social work curriculum is something maybe we should start looking. So hopefully that would be something that we can take out in the region. So thank you.
Thank you, Ling. Thank you very much. We have about 10 more minutes. That leaves maybe one or two more person to question. And so I see here my friend, Professor Tulsi Kumar from Bangladesh. So
Hello,
Professor
sir. Good morning,
Tulsi,
sir.
the mic is yours.
Yeah,
Don't
thank you,
take more
sir.
than
Good
5
morning.
minutes, okay?
Good morning, sir. I was listening to all of you, and actually I feel excited, learning a lot from the discussion on spirituality in social work practice. So I feel that actually I agree with your discussions, but actually I have some points to raise. Actually, yes, actually we can take lots of help from spirituality while practicing social work with individual, group, and community. But one thing I think we should take into consideration, that is in a multicultural society where different religious groups live together, we will have to be very, very careful that actually when you are going to talk about taking help from spirituality to help the people. So see, there should not be any conflict in different religious groups existing in a particular community. That is another point I think we should take into consideration, because it could be Christian spirituality, Islamic spirituality, Hindu spirituality, Buddhist spirituality. So I think we need to find out some common components, okay, relating to spirituality that could be helpful to help others. And actually, yes, actually, taking help from spirituality, can help the social worker to help others a lot. There is no doubt about it. But I agree with you. Actually, we need to conduct research on that. Right now, we don't have any literature much, especially in this Indian subcontinent. We're struggling. And actually, still the spirituality and social work, this course is not that popular still, because actually we will have to, as I told you, we don't have much literature. We are not doing much research on spirituality and social work. We need to do that, and we will have to find out the common components of spirituality materials that could be used while working with individual, family, group, and communities. That is one thing I would like to emphasize. But actually, I do agree with all of you that actually, yes, spirituality could be very much helpful for the social worker to practice social work with different groups of people. But one point, again, I would like to emphasize that has to be taken into account, that in a multicultural society, we need to think how to go about it when we are taking spirituality into consideration to help the people. That means while practicing social work with different groups of people. That is the point I wanted to raise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Tulsi. Definitely in agreement. And this is unfortunately a situation in many countries, and it has already encroaching, and we have been engulfed in that too. That there is this, I do not know why, but there is this fear to talk about religion in social work. Why should we be fearful of religion? When we talk about spirituality, people are much more at ease. This is what Chiu was trying to allude just now. People are much more at ease talking about spirituality because it is more general, more embracing, and quote unquote, it deals with the intrinsicness of the individual rather than the extrinsic that one of the speakers was mentioning just now. And like it or not to talk about a particular religion, it is not something that we should be shy away from. Japan and our friends in the Buddhist religion, they are advancing, and they don't make any excuses for that, and we appreciate that. So why can't, and according to our Japanese colleague, there shouldn't be one form of standard or globalized definition of social work. There is this movement going on now, a strong movement, that in the end, there are many versions of social work. But we, those who are inclined to spirituality, we have no choice but to include as a beginning, to step into the mainstream. We have to put our shoes by introducing spirituality in the general sense first, then later on see where it goes. But to keep on talking like this without taking any concrete steps, we're not going anywhere. We're just like a dog chasing its tail. We're not going around in circles. It's time that we move on, that each country, or rather each program, take a bolder step in expressing this idea of introducing spirituality to the social work curriculum, rather than embracing everything of the Eurocentric or not fear. Don't worry, because one of you mentioned just now about the difference between a secular person and a religious person. It is a fact that we have to live with. From a secularist point of view, they may not be religious, but it's spiritual. And on the other hand, from a sectarianist person, he or she is religious, but not necessarily spiritual. You know, it is in the tasawwuf or the Islamic spirituality, there is what we call the inner knowledge and the external knowledge. The external knowledge is the Sharia, and the internal knowledge is what we call tasawwuf. And it is common. I see more commonalities in the spirituality of all major religions and even indigenous culture than differences. The differences is in the externalities, but not the internalities or the intrinsic part of it. There's much more for us to cooperate rather than to work in to be mindful and fearful of. We have to take away the shackle of we cannot talk religion. That mindset is outdated. Okay, we have.
I do agree with you, sir. I do agree with you 100%. Thank you, sir.
We have we are approaching time, 58 minutes, 2 more minutes. Our friends in Cuba is very strict on time. So let us stop here, and there will be our discussion period. If you look at your timetable, there is a session that we all can participate later on. I think it's about 2 hours from now, Kana? Okay,
Thank you very much, President.
So with that, I thank all of you for participating, specifically Dr. Toton and Dr. Joryma for your wonderful presentation, and for all those people who have participated in the questions and the comments. Appreciate it a lot, I learned a lot, and much more to be discussed. This is just touching on the surface. Let's have more discussion on this, more deliberation. See you guys later on. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Prof. Hatta.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Kana and
So,
Dr.
ARIISW will start the roundup session 2 hours later.
Okay.
2 hours later.
What is the link for everybody? Is the same link for this?
The same link. So please come
Okay.
back to the same webinar.
Thank you very much.
2 hours from now.
Thank you so much, Kana.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll meet. Thank you, Joryma. Thank you so much. We'll be meeting.
very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Closing ceremony.
Suku. Thank you, Zul, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toto. Thank you.